among some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims over the number and quality of files released yesterday by the US Department of Justice. Many say they feel let down by the sheer scale of the numbers which have been blacked out. Some pages have been blacked out or redacted in full. The US government said the omissions were required to protect victims and for continuing investigations. Joe Inwood reports.
For years, people have campaigned to see the documents the FBI held on Jeffrey Epstein. This was not what they thought success would look like. Page after page of redacted documents. Black bars where they wanted smoking guns.
They owe the Congress and the American public an explanation for every redaction. That I didn't see published on the DOJ page, but the law is very clear that any redaction has to be justified in writing. They need to do that.
There are many photos of public figures, but mostly without context, and all, so far, without evidence of criminality. One of those who features regularly is Bill Clinton. He's seen in a pool with Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, and jacuzzi. The former president has always denied any wrongdoing.
What if we learned
So also have no
yeah,
one.
there were famous people who thought it was cool to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. That's not a crime.
We also see the former Prince Andrew lying across 5 unidentified people, apparently at the Sandringham estate. They're photos that will raise eyebrows, not the prospect of prosecutions. One person who did not feature prominently was President Trump. He was once friends with Epstein, but says they fell out years ago and has always denied any wrongdoing. He came to office promising to release the files, then changed his mind, calling them a hoax.
The yeas are 427, the nays are 1.
But had his hand forced by Congress. The Epstein Files Transparency Act compelled the Department of Justice to publish all documents they held on Jeffrey Epstein. The law did make exceptions for ongoing investigations, those showing abuse or identifying victims. One document which has been of interest is a complaint in 1996 by a woman called Maria Farmer to the FBI.
Maria Farmer made her report to the FBI, and had the FBI just listened to her and paid attention, then over 1,000 victims could have been spared and 30 years of trauma avoided.
We have approached the FBI for comment. Now, it's worth remembering that this is only the start of a huge release of files. Only a fraction of the total have been made available. That has led to outrage from lawmakers who are now talking about impeaching the Attorney General. But with vast quantities of documents still to go through, campaigners are hoping there will be more interesting revelations to come. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Let's speak to Nomia Iqbal, who's in Washington. Nomia, as we've been hearing, this is just 1% of all the documents, so much more to come.
That's right. Look, the truth is not much so far has been added to our understanding of Jeffrey Epstein, his vast, powerful network, nor crucially, how was it he was able to carry out these crimes for so long? I think the hope for victims is that given this is only 1%, more will come, even though all these files should have been released yesterday by law. This has been heavily managed by the White House, who've had these files for the best part of a year, but under huge pressure eventually released them because of this law that was passed last month. The release is front-loaded with pictures of President Clinton and other very famous celebrities, as Joe outlined there in that report. Many of them have denied any wrongdoing, and it's a reminder also that featuring in these photos is not an automatic inference of any wrongdoing. President Trump himself has not commented so far on the release of these files, despite the fact that he made Epstein such a big issue on the campaign trail last year. He has previously denied any wrongdoing. And whilst the White House has told the BBC that he is transparent, that this is, to quote them, the most transparent administration in US history, these files, they do trigger way more questions than answers.
Nomia Iqbal in Washington. Thank you very much. At least 5 members of the Islamic State group, including a cell leader, have been killed in a wave of US airstrikes, according to a Syrian monitoring group. President Trump said they were retaliation for the killing of 3 Americans in Syria last week. 70 targets were hit, most of them in a mountainous area north of Palmyra. Aircraft from Jordan were also involved. Well, our correspondent Hugo Pachega joins us now from Beirut. And Hugo, what's so interesting is that the Syrian government has backed these strikes.
Yeah, Reeta, so President Trump is saying that these were massive strikes that had the full support of the Syrian government, which is now part of this coalition fighting the Islamic State group in Syria. The president said this operation was successful with fighter jets, attack helicopters, and also artillery fire. I thought it was interesting that the US Defense Secretary said this wasn't the beginning of a new war. He said this was a response to the attack that happened in Syria last week when 2 American soldiers and also a civilian American interpreter were killed. But he also indicated that these American strikes against IS are going to continue. Now, this gives you an idea of how fragile the security situation in Syria is. I was in Syria earlier this month for the first anniversary of the fall of the Assad regime, and security is a major challenge for the new authorities, and that includes the threat coming from the Islamic State group. There has been the concern that they could be trying to take advantage of this transition in Syria to regroup and carry out attacks. And this is a concern not only of the new authorities in Syria, but also of a number of countries, including the US. The Americans still have 1,000 troops in Syria, and their main mission is precisely to counter any resurgence of the Islamic State group in the country.
Hugo, thank you. Christmas programmes on the BBC featuring the writer and comedian David Walliams will not be changed, the corporation has said. Walliams was dropped by his publisher HarperCollins yesterday after the Daily Telegraph reported claims that he harassed junior female employees at the publisher, which he denies. Prince George has helped out at a homeless shelter with his father, the Prince of Wales. The 12-year-old visited the Passage in Westminster, where William himself was brought as a child by his mother, Diana. Daniela Ralph has more.
Like father, like son, with his dad, a relaxed-looking Prince George helped prepare a meal for 150 people who were supported by the Passage homeless charity. A spokesman for the Prince of Wales
Prince
said it's been
George
important for William
and
to share this
the
work
future
with his
King
son, especially at
Prince.
Christmas. It was a full circle moment. When Prince William was 11, his mother Diana, Princess of
William,
Wales, took him
Prince
to the
William and
Passage. He
George
returned a number
helping
of times,
at a
including
homeless
with his younger
shelter.
brother, Prince Harry. And in the visitor's book, signed by his grandmother and his father more than 30 years ago, Prince George added his name and the date of his visit.
Prince William's often talked about when he, during his childhood, how his mother talked about, I think as he described, the importance of viewing life beyond palace walls. And I very much picked that up in terms of with George as well. And it seemed to me that this was, or is, a family that are just trying to actually ensure that their children are brought up with great awareness of what is around.
Prince George's public appearances are carefully managed by his parents. At 12 years old, he is still spared the scrutiny of regular royal engagements. But as a future king, this Christmas visit is an introduction to an aspect of life that will form part of his future. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
In a few hours from now, the Strictly Come Dancing finalists will take to the dance floor, hoping for their finest performance. 3 couples remain, with celebrities Amber Davis, George Clark and Karen Carney, all hoping to get their hands on the glitter ball trophy. Noor Nanji is here with me. A big moment, Noor.
A really big moment for these finalists who have reached this point in the contest. Each of them will perform 3 dances before all of us at home get our say on who is the winner. But it's also a really big moment for Tess Daly and Claudia Winkleman, Strictly's hosts, who are stepping down at the end of the current series. This is their final live appearance before their final ever appearance on the show, which will be the Strictly Christmas special. Now, other highlights tonight will include a group dance with all of the cast for 2025. Aside from Thomas Skinner, he will not be appearing, and in a social media post earlier today, he said he'd seen an email which apparently showed that he got more votes on Strictly than apparently that originally appeared, and it comes after media reports yesterday which suggested that he is suing the BBC for alleged vote rigging. Now, a BBC spokesperson said the Strictly public vote is robust, it's independently overseen, and it is verified to ensure complete accuracy.
Thank you. Noor Nanji there. YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul is in hospital with a double broken jaw after his fight in Miami against the two-time heavyweight world champion Anthony Joshua. The 28-year-old was completely outclassed by Joshua and barely landed a punch. Ade Adedoyin was there and he sent this report.
A brilliant finish, but far from a brilliant performance. It took some time, but Anthony Joshua finally got his man. This was a cat and mouse affair, with the American YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul proving to be an elusive target. A frustrated Joshua reduced to throwing wild swings. The action got a little messy at times, more wrestling than boxing, but Joshua finally found his range. Paul down twice in the fifth and finished off with a thunderous right hand in the sixth.
So a victory for Anthony Joshua, but not as straightforward as many had predicted. As for Jake Paul, his supporters will claim a moral victory for going 6 rounds with a two-time heavyweight world champion.
It's a win, but it's not a success. I think my coach expects more from me, and I expect more from myself. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, Jake has spirit.
As for Jake Paul, his ego might be bruised, but he walked away not as badly hurt as people feared, posting this short clip from his hospital bed to his followers after revealing his jaw had been broken. While it may not have been a classic, it was a lucrative night for both Paul and Joshua, who will walk away from this event with tens of millions more in the bank. Ade Adedoyin, BBC News, Miami.
England are on the brink of losing the Ashes, despite showing some fight in the third test in Adelaide. Set a world record target of 435 runs by Australia. They lost 6 wickets for 207 going into the final day of the match. Football now, and Chelsea had to come from behind to draw 2-2 against Newcastle at St James's Park in the Premier League this afternoon. But the home side felt they could have won it. Joe Curry was watching.
Newcastle and Chelsea met in the northeast, both looking for points to help their top 4 ambitions. The home side took the early advantage, Nicholas Voltemada with a tap-in to raise the roof at St James's Park. A week ago, his own goal cost his side the derby. Today, a very different story. As minutes later, he was at full stretch again. 2 for him, 2 for Newcastle, and all in the first 20 minutes. Big Nick, more like Saint Nick perhaps. A change of ends brought about a change of energy for the visitors though.
Brilliant free kick from the Chelsea captain.
As Reece James handed them a much needed boost. Now, should this have been a Newcastle penalty? Their manager certainly thought so. The referee didn't. How big a decision would that prove to be? Furry was the answer when João Pedro pulled off a wonderful individual effort to complete Chelsea's comeback. An afternoon to remember for their travelling fans, but was there time for one more goal? Harvey Barnes, almost.
Everybody in the stadium thought he was going to score.
The points in the end, though, shared. Joe Curry, BBC News.
That's it from us. The news continues here on BBC One, as now it's time for the news where you are. Bye-bye. Good evening, welcome to Midlands Today. I'm Amy Cole. Wolves fans say they're fearful the club could be relegated to the Championship after the executive chairman, Jeff Shee, announced last night that he was to stand down. Supporters attending the home match against Brentford today were reacting to Mr Shee leaving his role after almost 10 years at the Molineux. He recently admitted on BBC Radio WM that the club had sold too many players in one transfer window. Today, fans were asked to hold up these posters. They say they want some clarity as a new interim chairman, Nathan Shee, who's no relation, takes over.
There's a lot more questions to ask, really. If they're just going to replace Jeff Shee with another Folkestone employee that doesn't necessarily know an awful lot about football, then we're potentially just going to find ourselves back in the same position that we've been. So really what they need to do is use Nathan as an interim while they look for somebody that's got a bit of Premier League experience, who's got a little bit of football knowledge, and is going to know how to get us out of this mess and really build a plan and put a plan in place for us going forward.
I think we're in trouble. I don't know what's going on at all, but I don't think Folkestone are going to sell up. And I don't think any change at the top's going to make any difference.
I'm not sure what the future holds for our club. I fear that we are going to go down now. As much as I don't want to admit it, I'm always going to be optimistic in the back of my mind, but realistically, I'm very worried. Very worried.
A group of men are facing significant prison terms after a 16-year-old girl was repeatedly raped in Birmingham. Arkash Safar, who's bottom right from Warsaw, was found guilty of 5 counts of rape and causing the child to engage in sexual activity without consent. Shiraz Nasir, bottom left from Greater Manchester, was found guilty of rape. Mohammed Nadim, who's top right and from Warsaw, was found guilty of sexual assault. And Shaban Arif, also from Warsaw, was found guilty of driving her around to be sexually exploited. The gang is due to be sentenced in March. A mum of 2 who has played football since she was a child is calling for more research into potential links between the sport and motor neurone disease. Stacey Whittle from Worcester was diagnosed in July after she started to experience symptoms. Felicity Kovezic reports.
Stacey can no longer walk and uses a ventilator at night. She's cared for full-time by her husband Barry. She was diagnosed in July with motor neurone disease, a condition that affects the brain and spinal cord.
I had neck pain, and I just thought I had pulled a muscle. And then I couldn't lift my arms above my head.
Aged only 38 years old, she said it took almost a year to be diagnosed.
I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I was just obviously stressing that it was MND.
Her focus now is on her 2 teenage boys and making time count with them. She started playing football aged 8, including for West Bromwich Albion when she was 16 years old, and only stopped playing in the season before she was diagnosed. She wants more research to assess the links between MND and playing sports like football and rugby.
The more people that are being diagnosed that are sporty, and it's more young people that are getting it now as well. I just think that maybe there is a link.
Stacey can no longer play the sport she loves, but she's determined her story will help drive the search for answers. Felicity Kovezic, BBC Midlands Today, Worcester.
Let's take a look at the weather. Here's Jennifer Bartram.
Hello there, good evening. It's been a fairly cloudy, misty and murky day in places, but we've also had some spells of sunshine as well. And as we head into this evening, some clear spells for a time. But the cloud is going to be building up, and with it some outbreaks of rain as we head through the night. The temperatures tonight will drop down to around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, and the wind is fairly light coming in from the southeast. And tomorrow morning it is going to be a bit of a damp start, milder than it was this morning. Some outbreaks of rain first thing, but there will be a slice of dry weather through the middle part of the day. 1 or 2 showers always possible, and some of them could be on the heavy side. Tomorrow's top temperatures 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. Looking further ahead into Christmas week, Monday and Tuesday look fairly cloudy, and it gradually starts to get a little bit colder as we head towards Christmas Eve and Christmas. And that's all from me. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.